It was a silent night, the kind that blankets the world in an eerie stillness. I lay in bed, my eyes struggling to stay shut, but sleep eluded me. The only sound was the occasional creak of the old house settling in the darkness. I told myself it was just another restless night, but deep down, a foreboding sense of unease lingered. Suddenly, the room was bathed in an otherworldly glow, casting long shadows that danced along the walls. I sat up, rubbing my eyes, convinced it was a trick of my tired mind. But as the glow intensified, I couldn't ignore the strange feeling that something was terribly wrong. A low, guttural sound echoed through the house, chilling me to the bone. I stumbled out of bed, my heart pounding in my chest. I tiptoed down the creaky hallway, the glow leading me like a beacon of dread. As I approached the living room, the source of the light became clear. An ethereal figure, dressed in a tattered red suit, stood in the middle of the room. The air grew heavy with a sickly sweet scent, like decay mixed with the metallic tang of blood. I watched in horror as the figure turned towards me, revealing a face twisted in a grotesque parody of merriment. It wore a rotting, flesh-like mask, a mockery of the joyful expression we associated with the holiday season. "Santa?" I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. The figure's head twitched, and it emitted a low growl that sent shivers down my spine. It raised its arm and in its skeletal hand clutched a sack that seemed to writhe with unseen movement. A grotesque mockery of presence, I realized. With each step I took backward, the figure advanced, its footsteps echoing ominously. The glow intensified, revealing the true horror beneath the disguise. The once jolly eyes were empty sockets, and its skeletal hands reached out with elongated, razor-sharp claws. In the midst of my terror, I glimpsed a flash of red. I turned to see the remains of what once were reindeer, now mangled and lifeless, scattered around the room. The sickly sweet scent grew stronger, mixing with the stench of death. The twisted Santa let out a guttural laugh, a sound that seemed to emanate from the depths of hell itself. I stumbled over a fallen chair, desperation clawing at me as I searched for a way to escape. But the once familiar room now felt like a nightmare maze closing in around me. As I fumbled for the front door, the horror pursued me relentlessly. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the walls closing in with each step. I could feel its icy breath on my neck, the sickening presence threatening to consume me whole. With a burst of adrenaline, I threw open the front door and stumbled out into the frigid night. The glow faded, leaving only the pale light of the moon to illuminate the nightmare behind me. I dared not look back for fear of what I might see. To this day, I can't shake the memory of that twisted Santa, a malevolent force that had infiltrated the joyous holiday season. The once beloved icon had become a harbinger of terror, and the very thought of Christmas now sends shivers down my spine. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, except for the restless beat of my heart. I lay in bed, wide awake, haunted by the events that transpired just hours ago. The warmth of the holiday season had been replaced by an icy chill that seeped through the cracks of my bedroom window. Earlier that evening, I had donned my flannel pajamas and tiptoed downstairs to catch a glimpse of Santa in action. A foolish curiosity overcame me, and as I reached the bottom step, I peered into the living room. The sight that met my eyes froze my blood. Santa, in his iconic red suit, stood by the tree, but something was terribly wrong. His beard, once snowy white, hung in tattered strands, and his eyes glowed with an unnatural crimson light. The presence beneath the tree seemed to writhe as if alive, and the air was thick with a sinister energy. Unable to tear my gaze away, I watched in horror as Santa turned toward me, his gaze locking onto mine. The once jovial twinkle in his eyes had been replaced by a malevolent gleam that sent shivers down my spine. He spoke, his voice a guttural growl that echoed through the room. "You've been a naughty little one," he hissed, and a cold sweat broke out across my forehead. Before I could react, his form twisted and contorted, becoming something monstrous. His limbs elongated, and his fingers morphed into twisted claws. I stumbled backward, crashing into a stack of presents. The room seemed to warp and twist around me, as if reality itself was unraveling. The once festive decorations now seemed grotesque and nightmarish. Santa, or whatever had taken his form, advanced toward me with an unnatural grace. Panic seized me. and I bolted up the stairs, taking them two at a time. I locked myself in my room, praying that the nightmare downstairs was just that, a nightmare. But the nightmare persisted. Outside my window, I heard the jingling of bells, a haunting melody that sent shivers down my spine. The sound grew louder, closer, until it felt as if the very air was vibrating with malevolence. Terrified, I peeked through the curtains to see a sleigh, not pulled by reindeer, but by skeletal creatures with hollow eyes. At the reins was Santa, or the monstrous entity that had taken his form. He looked up at me, a twisted grin spreading across his face. "You can't escape the naughty list," he whispered, and the world outside my window twisted and contorted, mirroring the nightmare within. As I cowered in the corner of my room, I heard the sound of hooves on the roof, and the ceiling above me creaked under an otherworldly weight. The walls seemed to close in, the air thickening with an oppressive darkness. And then, with a bone-chilling howl, the nightmare descended upon me. Now, as I lie in bed, the echoes of that horrifying night etched into my mind. I know that the warmth of the holiday season has been forever extinguished. The twisted version of Santa that visited my home was no benevolent gift-giver, but a harbinger of darkness, a creature that lurks in the shadows of Christmas, waiting to ensnare those who dare to peek behind the curtain of holiday cheer. The chill of the winter air settled into my bones as I stood in the dimly lit living room, gazing at the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree. The clock on the wall ticked away the final moments before the stroke of midnight, signaling the arrival of Christmas. Little did I know this Christmas Eve would be etched into the darkest recesses of my memory, a night where the spirit of the season twisted into something malevolent. My parents had long since retired to their bedroom, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the soft hum of holiday tunes playing in the background. Curiosity gripped me as I wondered if I could catch a glimpse of Santa in the act. As a teenager, I knew the truth about the man in the red suit, but there lingered a childlike yearning for the magic of the season. I crept down the stairs, the creaking boards beneath my feet betraying my attempt at stealth. The glow from the Christmas tree spilled into the hallway, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. The air hung heavy with the scent of pine and the faint aroma of gingerbread. Reaching the bottom of the stairs, I peeked around the corner and froze. There he was, or at least something that wore the guise of Santa Claus. The figure stood hunched over the presents, his back turned to me. His once jolly red suit appeared tattered and stained, a grotesque parody of the festive attire. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and my heart pounded in my chest as I watched this distorted version of Santa move with an unsettling grace. The room seemed to darken around him, the twinkling lights of the tree flickering as if in response to his presence. Unable to tear my gaze away, I witnessed Santa turn around, his face hidden beneath the shadows of his hood. The air became frigid, and I shivered involuntarily. A voice, deep and guttural, resonated from the figure. "You've been a naughty one this year," it rumbled, the words sending a shiver down my spine. The twisted version of Santa took a step forward, and the room seemed to shrink in response. I stumbled backward, colliding with the wall. Panic set in, my mind racing to comprehend the horror unfolding before me. The presents under the tree writhed, as if alive, their once cheerful wrapping paper now taking on a grotesque quality. The figure's hood fell back, revealing a face that sent a shockwave of terror through me. Santa's eyes glowed with an unnatural red hue, devoid of the warmth and kindness one would expect. His skin clung tightly to his skull, accentuating the skeletal features beneath. A twisted smile spread across his face, and he extended a hand toward me, fingers elongating into sharp, claw-like appendages. I bolted for the stairs, the sound of the figure's malevolent laughter echoing behind me. As I ascended, the air grew heavy, as if an unseen force sought to drag me back down. I slammed the door shut, my breaths coming in ragged gasps. The once familiar surroundings of my home now felt like a maze of horrors. I fumbled for my phone, hands trembling as I dialed my parents' number. No answer. The weight of isolation pressed upon me, a suffocating realization that I was alone in this nightmare. Through the window, I heard the distant jingling of bells, a haunting melody that seemed to mock the joyous tunes of the season. Peering out, I saw a sleigh, not pulled by reindeer, but by twisted creatures with hollow eyes. At the reins was the abomination that had taken on Santa's form, the red suit now a tattered cloak billowing in the frigid wind. "You can't escape the naughty list," his voice whispered through the night, carrying a promise of dread. The walls of my room seemed to close in, the air thickening with an oppressive darkness that seeped into every corner. As I huddled in the corner of my room, the nightmare outside intensified. Hooves clattered on the roof, and the ceiling groaned under an otherworldly weight. I could feel the very fabric of reality unraveling, the boundaries between the festive and the macabre blurring into a nightmarish tapestry. And then, with a bone-chilling howl, the twisted Santa descended upon the house. The night stretched on, each passing moment filled with the grotesque tableau of a once-celebrated figure wreaking havoc. The air resonated with the sounds of unearthly laughter and the tearing of wrapping paper, as if the very essence of Christmas had been perverted into a malevolent force. I remained hidden, paralyzed by fear as the entity prowled through the house. Shadows danced along the walls, contorted into monstrous shapes that whispered of unspeakable horrors. The once welcoming glow of the Christmas tree now cast long, ominous shadows that seemed to reach out with skeletal fingers. As the first light of dawn painted the sky, the malevolent force retreated, leaving behind a home transformed into a nightmarish spectacle. The presents lay torn and mangled, their contents replaced with a tangible sense of dread. The air held the lingering scent of decay, a stark contrast to the holiday cheer that once filled the space. In the aftermath, I emerged from my hiding place, cautiously stepping over the remnants of the night. The world outside my window seemed ordinary, untouched by the horrors that had unfolded within. Yet the scars of that twisted Christmas Eve remained etched into the very fabric of my being. The holiday season, once a time of joy and celebration, now bore the stain of a darkness that lurked beneath the veneer of festivity. As I gazed upon the ruined remnants of my home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been unleashed, a malevolence that transcended the boundaries of the season, forever tainting the magic of Christmas.